Hey there, everyone. This is Bob Martin, the RCSubGuy with the NautilusDryDocks.com. We're doing YouTube Live this morning. First time in a little bit. This is like the sixth or seventh stream that I've done, and I'm really happy to say that typically it's fairly well attended. So thanks to all of you who are joining live, and again to all of you who will be looking later on. Today, there are three main topics that I wanted to cover, plus, of course, any topics that you guys want to talk about. By all means, type it in there. I'll do my best to answer as we go live. So how about we start with a little bit of an update on what's going on. As you know, I've been having some health issues. I leave tomorrow to go to Houston to the MD Anderson Clinic. So hopefully I'll know a lot more about what is going on after that. Well, that was kind of crazy. Again, my stick just ended up dying on me, and then I lost my, there we go. I lost my control. So I get to do this the old-fashioned way, holding my arm out. It'll be giving me a good workout. So as I was saying, I'll know more about what's going on in terms of my availability, part shipping, builds, and all of that fun stuff. Hopefully by next week. So let's start with an update on some projects. So if you guys were following along, I had that Ohio class that by Submarine Works. That's all done. So if you have not seen the video for it, that is all posted up, the final video. And that included some pond footage, as well as a complete overview, top to bottom, of the boat. So you can see how it was all put together. So by all means, check that out. It turned out really, really well. The other big project that I have is the Type 21, big Type 21. You can see on the table here, I got the drive system kind of queued up for operation. So I'm going to spin this around. So we'll take a look at this. This is a modified OTW dive module. It's going to actually be a hybrid system. There's going to be two completely segregated cylinders, each with its own 10-inch ballast tank. So it's the equivalent of a 4¼ by 20-inch ballast tank for the boat. And they'll be individually controllable front and rear for trim. So that is really exciting. I'm working right now to fit all of the components in there. I've got the rear bulkhead with twin drive motors all created. That's got to go in along with all the pumps, all of the servos, all of the control devices for the periscopes. We got pumps for those. And then, of course, we've got a motor in the front. This is going to operate the bow thruster. And then pumps, controllers, receivers, all of that stuff's got to fit in there. So lots more electronics to go in there in terms of speed controllers. I'm going to play around with this automatic depth controller, this depth cruiser by KMC. These are available on my website, and they allow autonomous depth control at whatever depth you want. So that is really cool as well. If you have not seen the photos up on Facebook, on social media, this is the hull. You can see it's got some paint on it. I did some light weathering. You can see those beautiful brass props in the back there. But that's the boat kind of in its entirety. Turned out really well, and I'll be doing a little bit more weathering on that as we go a little bit further in. But this is the base paint, and the base weathering. Someone asked about torpedoes. Yeah, absolutely. If you've been following along with the project, you'll know that it's going to have a minimum of 4, maybe 6, but a minimum of 4 operational torpedo tubes. Firing scale, 30-second scale, electric torpedoes. Periscopes, as I said, are also functional, retracting bow planes, all sorts of fun stuff. Those are the big projects I got on the docket. Coming up is going to be a big 66.5-inch Nautilus static build. That's going to be another one like a super sub build. If you guys followed some of my past work, this one's going to have tons of really cool features, lighting, operational features, motorized gizmos, sound, remote control, all sorts of fun stuff. So take a look at that to be coming up over the course of the next few months. All right, topics for conversation. There's 3 that I wanted to touch on, and one of them was actually submitted by a gentleman. I think his name was Marty, and he had a question about what size of vent holes do I put in my RC submarine. So there's 2 things that you need to talk about when we talk about venting. One is the flow of water that moves in and out of the hull. And those is obviously accomplished via flood holes in the bottom of the hull. And those, depending on the model, can be hidden in actual scale features, or they can be as crude as simple large drilled holes. If we take a look, I think you can see what I did with this one. Those huge, like 5/8 diameter holes all down the keel there. Because this boat is so huge, you need to move a lot of water in and out when it floods. So you want to make sure that the holes that you drill in there will allow that to happen. From a like a flow perspective or a size perspective, you need to make sure that the water is allowed to enter and leave the submarine hull at a rate that exceeds the capability of your ballast system to pump water in and out. So hopefully that makes sense to you. You do not want it to be a situation where the ballast system is pumping water out, but your trim is limited by the flow of water entering and exiting the boat. Now, of course, all of this conversation is predicated upon you using a wet hull submarine, which is the modern way of doing things. Certainly a lot of Europeans love this dry hull concept where the entire inside of the boat is dry. Certainly works, and there's got some benefits to that as well. I'm not a big proponent of it due to the exceptional weight that it creates of your boat. These are heavy enough to begin with. Having a 150-pound model to lug in and out of the water is not something I get excited about. The other thing that you need to talk about when we talk about venting, we talked about the water coming in and out of the model. Now we need to talk about the air escaping from the upper part of the hull as it submerges. You're going to want to have as many vent holes as you can manage. And in terms of size, you want them to be like a minimum, like 3/16 of an inch, or ideally like 1/8 of an inch. For Europeans or everybody else in the world except Americans, if we talk metric, you want it at least 2 millimeters, but ideally 3 millimeter diameter holes. And the reason for that is that anything smaller, you start encountering surface tension of the water, and you'll end up with like a bubble that stops the air from escaping the hull. And you do not want that to happen. You end up with trapped air. And what can end up happening as that model moves forward and back in that water, that air bubble can travel forward and back in the hull. And this will definitely affect the trim of your boat. So as you dive, the air bubble shifts to the back, makes the back more buoyant, and the model will crash dive straight down into the bottom. Obviously, this is not a good thing. So we want to ensure that all of that air, that trapped air, has a path of escape from the model at the highest points in the model and at various scale features all along the exterior of the boat, so that your trim will not get messed up. So those are the two things that you need to worry about from a venting perspective: water in the bottom, air at the top. Just make sure you've got sufficient size holes and number of holes to allow for the air and water to move out in and out with your ballast system. So hopefully that answers that question. If anybody has any other questions about that, by all means, let me know. Since we're on the topic of ballast, and I was talking about ballast there a little bit, I had a conversation with actually somebody who was fairly experienced with RC submarines for like decades and decades. And we were talking about the ideal size and configuration of a ballast tank. Now, he seemed to think that having a very large, very long ballast tank would spread all the weight out evenly and result in an easier to control model. I, however, argued the fact that this is not what we wanted. So if we take a look at, for example, this is a fairly compact ballast tank. But what'll happen, imagine this being, let's say, twice as long. If the model dives, all of that water is going to rush towards the bow, making the bow heavier, resulting in a greater change of pitch, resulting in more water flowing forward, resulting in a greater change of pitch, until that poor submarine is standing on its nose in the mud on the bottom of the pond. That is not anything, obviously, that you want to happen. So just for your information, the ideal shape of a ballast tank is actually spherical, like a ball. And the reason for that is that as that ball tilts forward and back, the water doesn't move. It remains perfectly centered about that center of buoyancy. So that is not always possible to do. But if you want the perfect ballast tank, if you're building your own system, that is what you're actually after. You want a sphere or a ball in there. And it makes it easy to vent the tank at the top. And then you can also, of course, put a lower vent in there for water to come in and out as well, if you're going to have a system of that configuration. But as I had mentioned, that's not always possible. So really what you are shooting for is a ballast tank that's as short and fat as you can manage to fit in your boat. So ideally, that ballast tank will extend all the way to the outside of the hull. And it will be as short as possible. You want to make sure, however, that the top of the ballast tank does not extend beyond the surfaced water line. Otherwise, what you're doing is lifting ballast tank out of the water, which means your ballast tank has to be bigger to offset that weight. So it's not an ideal situation to have it above. It won't be a terrible thing if it does, but if you can, try and make sure that that ballast tank does not extend above the surface water line. So for those of you making your own systems, your own ballast tanks, your own watertight cylinders, that is what you are aiming for. Ideally a sphere, but if not, short, stubby, and fat, and not long by any stretch of the imagination. All right. The last thing that I wanted to talk about was another question that somebody had recently for me. And this was talking about lighting, LED lighting. If some of you have seen some of my other builds, you'll have seen that I love the Nautilus from 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. And that particular model has like over 20 LED lights all throughout. It's like 16 on either side, plus 2 in the top, plus inside lights. So lots and lots of LED lights, and I've been running them for years and years in my model. So the question that he had was, do we need to seal the leads for all of the LEDs, or can we leave them exposed to water? Let's back up a little bit. If you joined me live before, I will have relayed to you the fact that fresh water, fresh clear water, is actually an exceptionally good insulator. It does not conduct electricity. So if you are in your bath, for example, with clean, clear water without chlorine in it, let's say you have a filtration system for your house, you could put, a battery in that water and nothing would happen, because that clean, fresh water is going to insulate the terminals from one another. Now, in practical application, almost any water that you encounter is going to have some form of contaminants in it, either in the form of a chemical, mineral, or biological contaminant. All of these contribute to conductivity between terminals in an electrical situation. Fresh-ish water is not such a big deal. I would feel pretty confident running exposed terminals. What you'll find if you do that over time, the positive terminal of your lights and of your battery are going to get some like green coating on it. And that's like an oxidization. It's not oxidization, it's a coating, a mineral chemical coating that occurs through electrolysis on those terminals. So realistically, it's not going to do much to you. It's certainly not going to drain massive, current from your battery or anything like that. But over time, in theory, you're corroding, you're losing electrons from those positive terminals, and they will eventually fail on you. So having said all that, and because, running in a swimming pool, for example, or more heavily contaminated waters with, like algae and all that kind of stuff in it, you want to make sure that these are all sealed. So like sealed lead acid batteries, again, you can run those in the wet, but you're going to want to, at the very least, seal off the positive terminal. So for something that large, you can simply use like RTV, like a silicone, clear silicone, something flexible so that if that wire moves, you're not popping, a seam open and allowing water to come in. So seal that off completely and you should not have any problem. Now, with LED lights, see if I can grab one here for you. Well, yeah, I can. I got lots and lots. These are green ones. So when you buy an LED, they look like this. You've got a positive and a negative leg on it. The positive is longer than the negative. You can also tell because that anode inside, let's see if I can focus on this thing. Nope. Anyhow, the positive is the smaller of the two contacts that's encased in the plastic inside. So when you attach a resistor to that, or just simple wire, you've got exposed leads on the LED. Now, what some people have done or would say that they would do is, well, I'll just use some heat shrink, and I'll put that around the outside of it, and it'll completely protect it. Unfortunately, unless you get some that has a lot of adhesive inside, so the self-adhesive heat shrink, which I actually use quite a bit. This is the stuff that I use in a kit, all various sizes, but it's got an adhesive on the inside that's almost like hot glue, real thick and pasty. And as you heat it, that glue liquefies, the heat shrink shrinks around your connection, and then the glue kind of like oozes out. So you could probably get away with utilizing that to seal up your terminals on your LED lights, at least again on the positive anode for the LED. If you do not use that, what you'll actually end up happening, that heat shrink, that rubber or plastic is going to shrink around it, but water pressure as you operate your boat is going to force water into and underneath that heat shrink. And when you bring it out of the water and dry your model out, there's still going to be water inside underneath that heat shrink, and it's going to corrode that connection until eventually it snaps off and you lose your LED. So in summary, if you are going to put LED lights in the conning tower of your submarine or anywhere else that you want to have it, you definitely should think about sealing off the positive terminal of each of the LED lights. Do so either with that RTV that I talked about before, or the heat shrink that has the adhesive inside. If you do not have access to either of those, I would recommend running it bare, exposed, so that when you do pull it out of the water, everything dries out completely. You'll get that green buildup on there, but at least it makes it easy to visually inspect each one of the LEDs for any damage prior to or after operation in the pond. So hopefully that answers the question regarding LED lights. I think I had touched on this before, but since we're on that topic anyway, I offer on my website, and this was a question that somebody had asked, do you have a website? Obviously they didn't tune in at the beginning of the cast where I said nautilusdrydocks.com, but that's the website, www.nautilusdrydocks.com. These are the connections that I typically utilize for LED lights. Oh, and I dropped it. Oh! So I sell these on my website. They're pretty inexpensive, completely waterproof, 2-pin. And basically the way they work is you press the two connections together and then push the ring up, screw it on, and it pulls that seal tight, and it makes for a waterproof connection for LED lights. So typically what I'll do is I'll run this out my watertight cylinder. It'll look kind of like this, kind of dangling on the outside. And that'll be the light power output from the cylinder. And then on the other end, we would have our LED light lead. This would plug in, and in that way you can remove it from your cylinder, connect it, for maintenance and removal and all of that fun stuff. So this would be the other end of the equation, getting power from your cylinder. Current rating on these, this would be tons for LED lights. I'm guessing this is what, 18 gauge or something like that. So I mean, this will handle a lot of current. LED lights, we're talking 30, 40 milliamps each. So certainly you don't need to worry anything about that. If you're thinking for your main drive battery though, these are going to be really light. If you take a look at those, it's 8, maybe 20 gauge wire. I use different waterproof connectors for that, and they look like this. And that's the heavier gauge wire. This is 18 or 16 gauge wire that'll handle a little bit more current safely for your boat. A lot of people, I would say, in my experience, really over-engineer, particularly the power requirements of the boat. They've got like 6 gauge wire, coming out of the battery. It's like an inch thick, and they run it all through there. Your boat, probably in a worst case scenario, is only going to be pulling 3 or 4 amps, and if it gets stalled, maybe 5 or 6 amps. The gauge of wire that you need to handle that is not excessive. So that real thick, heavy, huge wire is not a necessity at all. Just kind of bear, it doesn't hurt, but you don't need it. So just bear that in mind when you're designing and implementing your boat. So that was it. You have seen projects I've got on the bench. We got a little update on shipping. So just so you know, I'm out basically this entire week coming up. If you place an order, I will not be able to fulfill it until after I get back. So apologies in advance, but that is life. By all means, feel free to order. We'll queue up those orders, get them shipped out as soon as I can once I return. Seen the Type 21 and talked to you about the Nautilus. So we got things coming up in the future. I will say I'm pretty excited. After I get back, I'll be able to re-advertise the Sequest DSV kits. I have them in stock. They are ready to go. I've just got to kit them up, box them up, and get them ready to go. So once I get back, I'll open them up for purchase on my website. So if you missed that initial run of 20 kits that went out, and it's something that you're interested in, that's 1/300th scale. It's 40.25 inches in length, which makes a beautiful display model. And if you are thusly talented, you can convert it to remote control as well. And that's something that I am looking forward to doing myself in the future as well. So look for that coming out in the very near future. Will you be creating any larger scale subs? Well, first off, define larger scale. I've got 48 scale Type 21 that's going to be coming out. I've got a 96 scale Oscar that will be coming out. All of this is predicated on time and health issues, so just kind of bear that in mind. I do have something kind of exciting brewing right now that may allow me to focus more time and energy on the RC submarine hobby, and if so, you'll see a lot more velocity to projects and products. There was a quick question here about alligators in my area. Yes, there are alligators all over the place. I never run into any problem with them. Typically when you find them, you know, they're 4, 5, 6 feet long. So they're after, you know, like birds and fish, certainly not people. I would be very worried about taking small dogs, you know, to the side of the pond. And I would also be somewhat curious to see what an alligator would think of an RC submarine in the water if it was really hungry. So will be interesting to see. I haven't had any problem with that, and I run in my local pond here all the time. Although my development here is usually pretty aggressive about finding and removing alligators if they get over 3 or 4 feet in length. So that's something exciting to think about, especially when you talk about losing a submarine in the water and having to go in after it. That gets really exciting. So for those of you who don't have to worry about that, you know, consider yourselves lucky. And for those of you who are in the same situation as I am, we are the brotherhood of the brave, having to go in there and retrieve the boats. Question about airbrush and compressor. So back from the days when I was like building cars and everything, I've got a massive air compressor. It's like a 5 horsepower, 26 gallon monster right there. I keep that in my shop, and I use it obviously for everything, and I can adjust it, you know, all the air pressure and everything. I use Pash airbrushes almost exclusively, and I've got quite a few of them. My favorite one though is like a bajillion years old, and my grandmother gave it to me when I was like 14. This is a Pash airbrush as well. It's like super, super old, like decades and decades old, but it's just kind of old, reliable, you know, for me. Single action, push the button, the air comes out, sprays the paint. I've got a double action airbrush as well, a Pash Talon. And for those of you that aren't aware from an airbrush perspective, single action basically means there's one button up on top, you push it, allows air to flow out, and that air draws the paint out, sprays it on your model. Dual action actually has air control as well as paint control. So you can engage the air, and then you can adjust the rate of the paint flowing through it for some really, really fine control over what you're doing. Typically in our application, or at least in my application, single action is absolutely more than adequate for what we use. You can adjust the paint flow manually. So you got the same action, it's just not as dynamic as being able to control it with that single hand. So a little airbrush education for those of you that are interested. And from a paint perspective too, I've kind of fallen in love with, or I've had good luck, I shouldn't say fallen in love with these Tamiya colors. There's some yellow. I find if you just thin them out with a little bit of water, boy, they flow nice. They never clog. Good coverage, easy to clean up. So if you're looking for paint to use with your airbrush, that's acrylic, so water cleanup as well. Something I forgot to mention that is going to be happening fairly quickly. I am going to be doing a buildup of a 1/48 scale trumpeter Type 7 U-boat. Now, for those of you familiar with it, the trumpeter kit, which again you can get on my website if you're interested, I have them in stock. It comes with a full interior. Now, I'm not going to be doing the full interior with this boat, but I am going to be doing an exceptionally detailed exterior paint and weathering. I'm going to be going into a lot of really cool techniques with paint chipping, utilizing hairspray and salt techniques. So for those of you interested in weathering your boats up, stay tuned. I need to have that boat done by the end of May because there's a deadline associated with it. Watch for that. It's a nice size. It's like 55 inches long at 48 scale. There'll be lots of really cool details in there from a weathering perspective. Check it out. Unless I see another question coming up, I'm at the 30-minute mark and I've got stuff to do today. I really appreciate everybody coming out. Thank you for joining me. And as always, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, suggestions, anything, email me at any time, bob@rc-sub.com. Last question in there, watertight units, do you make them? I do not manufacture these myself. I have two lines that I represent. One is the David Merriman sub driver. The other one is the OTW dive module, which I've gone into before. That's Bob Dimack out of the UK. I am in the process of designing my own system, but it'll be a little while before that comes out. Obviously intimately familiar with both of those systems, as well as many other systems that I've worked with over time in the past. So if you have any questions about those, I'll be more than happy to offer any input or suggestions that I may be able to offer. So thanks, everyone. Again, this is Bob Martin, the RC sub guy with the Nautilus, drydocks.com. Thanks for joining me. We will catch you guys all next time.